Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, brothers and sisters. So in today's video, we're going to be picking up from the second station of the 14th Flash. As you can see, I'm actually now taking a video of myself and reading the physical text of the Risale-i, as I said I would in a post that I released on YouTube. So we're going to be reading, now before I continue from where we left off, I'd like to briefly summarize what we've read so far. So, on the face of the universe, the face of the earth, and the face of man are three stamps of dominicality, which are three stamps of dominicality. So, on the earth, the universe, which is everything that exists, and man, there are three stamps of dominicality. So there are stamps. Stamps are things that signify the importance or the influence or the power of something. There are these three stamps which point to the dominicality, so the sovereignty of God over the universe. Okay? Now, the first stamp is the great stamp of Godhead, which is manifested through the mutual assistance, cooperation, and embracing and corresponding to one another of beings in the totality of the universe. This looks to in the name of God. Now, I'm going to briefly explain what the first stamp is, and then we're going to go over the second stamp, and then I'm going to stop the video here because I want to keep this video short and concise. Now, the first stamp is the great stamp of Godhead. Godhead, if you search it up, means the substance of God, so the essence or the nature of God. And this is manifested, so this shows itself through the mutual assistance, the assisting, that working together to achieve a certain goal, right? Working together to achieve a certain goal, the cooperating, so functioning together, and in the embracing and corresponding. So once again, the working together, the harmony, okay? So the assistance, the cooperation, the embracing and corresponding another of beings in the totality of the universe, so the entire universe, this looks to in the name of God. So when we're seeing the beings of the universe mutually assisting each other, cooperating with one another, and being in harmony with one another, this points to in the name of God. This means they're doing this with God's will, with His power. Why does this point to God, to the stamp of Godhead? Why does this point to God's disposition? Because just like how we have a nature, God also has a nature. It's in God's name to be powerful. It's in God's name to be infinitely merciful, to be infinitely compassionate, to be infinitely powerful, to be infinitely bountiful. Okay? These are in God's disposition. So when we see the mutual assistance, when we see things in harmony, when we see things working together, this points to the disposition of God. This is coming from the power of God, from the compassion and the mercy of God, right? That's why this first stamp is the great stamp of Godhead, okay? All the beings in the universe working together, this points to God's disposition, okay? Now, the second is the great stamp of divine mercifulness, which is manifested through the mutual resemblance and proportion, order, harmony, favor, and compassion, and disposal, raising, and administration of plants and animals on the face of the earth. This looks to in the name of God, the merciful. So what does this mean? Well, the first stamp was the stamp of Godhead, was the great stamp of Godhead. The second great stamp is the stamp of divine mercifulness. Divine means of or relating to God. Okay? So the second stamp, right, the mark, that something that signifies the influence or the power, right, of something. The second stamp is the stamp of divine mercifulness, the mercy of God. And this shows itself through the mutual resemblance, so things resembling, being alike to each other. And proportion. Proportion means means symmetry or balance. It means like symmetry. Okay. And the order and the harmony, once again, things working together, correspondence. And the favor and compassion in the disposal, raising, administration of plants and animals on the face of the universe, on the face of the earth. Okay, so how the plants and how the animals are disposed, how they're raised, how they're administered, this points to in the name of God, the merciful. Okay. Now, for example, like a commander, for example, you could, for example, you might have heard something like let's say this commander had 1,000 soldiers at his disposal. What does that mean? That means he has 1,000 soldiers who are, at his command, who are going to do what he tells them to do. All right. Whether, it's to do some sort of retreat, or maybe it's to make a charge or an invasion or whatever that is. Right. So all the beings in the universe, they're under the disposal of God, right? And how they're disposed, how they're raised, how they're administered, okay, and how they resemble each other, right? This points to in the name of God, the merciful. The first stand points to in the name of God. The second stand points to in the name of God, the merciful. Okay, so I'll give an example from my own life. Well, of like for example, me seeing like the proportion, the harmony. For example, like when you go on a walk, right? Like for example, when I go on a walk, sometimes like I see the trees. Well, obviously, there are trees about me, and sometimes I'll go up to the trees and I'll look at the leaves, right? I'll look at the leaves, and there's a really beautiful symmetry, very beautiful proportion, right? Like you have the green leaf, and then there's like a line that runs down. There might be like netted veins, right? Then there's like more segments. There are these like tiny little compartments in them, right? You see order and harmony in them. Or for example, in a pine cone, right? We have some like pine trees in our neighborhood, right? Um, you look at some of the pines, you see like the proportion, you see all the like the little pines on it, how it's like lined up in a really intricate way, right? That's why it says like the compassion, like the disposal, the administration, whatnot of plants, right? So for the leaves and trees or the pines, those are plants, for example, and animals on the face of the universe. Right, so when you look at the different animals, right, they also resemble each other. Or for example, even if like let's say there's a different species of a certain animal, they might still look similar to each other, right? And it's not just similarity, right? It's also the order, the harmony, how they're raised, once again, how they're administered, okay? And so this looks to in the name of God, the merciful. Okay? Now I'm going to stop here because I don't want to make this video very long, but I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I hope you guys were able to learn something from this, and inshallah, I will see you guys next time.